do the pledge. Josh is going to put up the pictures of the flag, and he's going to unmute everybody so that so we can hear everybody that says the pledge because we want everybody to say it.
Bear with me on 1 second here.
Okay.
All right.
Joined accidentally twice.
All right.
You ready? I see the flag.
Oh, we're good.
Oh, here we go.
To the
Flag.
America.
We stand
One nation.
nation under God,
indivisible,
T.
justice for all.
Do a moment of silence for our military and our frontline workers.
All right, I put everybody on mute. Sheila, you got to unmute yourself.
I did.
And then I'll unmute Rocky. All right, we're good. So
I'm just going to make a few quick announcements, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rocky. So Carrie would like for me to let everybody know that we will soon have some fun women's shirts coming soon with our logo. It's the ones that have the fish on the sleeves. So it's pretty cool. Also, I wanted to just let everybody know that Tim's dog, Dickens, passed away yesterday. So if you can just send him some condolences. He's really struggling with it right now. It's something just really hard for him to deal with right this minute. So if you can just kind of wish him out, wish him some condolences, that would be great. Also, Jack has a few notes for the Wyoming trip. He said we are going to be sending out meeting invites soon to meet for everybody that's going. Invoices was sent out earlier this week for the trip, and to please pay them as soon as possible because we need to make the a deposit to the Boy Scouts. For our special raffles, the drawings, we're going to hold off on doing the special raffle until we're meeting in person. And also because of the gaming license, we want to make sure that we have our gaming license intact before we start that. Last but not least, I'm going to let Josh do some announcements in regards to the banquet.
thanks, Sheila. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the second virtual meeting. Hope you're going to enjoy it tonight. Got a really good speaker coming up. I just wanted to say real quick that we do have the banquet. Make sure you got Saturday, November the 7th saved in your calendar. We're going to do a 6 p.m. off-site happy hour. That's a to-be-determined location, but probably somewhere in Crestview. Additionally, our banquet's going to start right at 6:15. Remember, it's at St. Barb's Reception Hall off Turkey Foot, and they have a 5 p.m. mass that day. So we want to be respectful and let the people be able to leave mass before we start. So right at 6:15. I know how early you guys are, but we can't get there before 6:15. So far, we've got $1,300 raised for the prizes we've been purchasing for the banquet. So thank you for that. I set a goal for $10,000 to get raised so that we can have lots of prizes and stuff for you guys to win and help what we need to do for the year. So check out the website. If you'd like to make a donation, you can click on that link, and we definitely appreciate it. So with that being said, once Rocky's done with the speaking today, we do have 3 prizes we're going to be raffling off. So we'll take care of that as soon as the speaker is over. Thanks, everybody.
All right, so everybody listen up. Rocky Cox, he's with Rockytop Anglers. Give him your undivided attention, please. Thank you. Go ahead, Rocky.
Thank you, Sheila.
Welcome.
I'd like to thank everybody for having me this evening. Is it working?
Yes, we can hear you.
I've come and I'm bringing a presentation for the Clinch River. This is a PowerPoint presentation, and I often tell people just to feel free to ask questions as they pop up. and I'm waiting on it to let me bring it up here.
Rocky, you got to go to the share content button.
Yeah, it's not that button is not available currently.
All right.
It's where the three dots are. You see the three dots? Oh, it's not there. You're right.
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
right
see
there.
it either.
I've got a stop my video button and a
There you
participant
go.
button, and that's it.
My bad. You're good to go
Okay.
now.
Got it.
All right.
There we go. Like I was saying, if you got any questions, feel free to write them in the chat box, and Sheila will pass them on along to me as we go. Without further ado, this is the Clinch River, an in-depth look at one of the trophy trout fisheries of East Tennessee presented by Rockytop Anglers. My name is Rocky Cox. I grew up fishing the rivers and streams of East Tennessee. I'm a Coast Guard licensed captain, been guiding professionally since the 2000. Enjoys fishing with new fishermen as well as experienced anglers. I'm a member of the Clacker Craft Pro staff. So the Clinch River has been recognized as one of the top 100 trout streams in the country. It provides year-round fishing, and it's got pretty good public access, which makes it a really good destination to visit if you enjoy trout fishing. It's kind of famous for 15 to 20-inch rainbow trout. We find a lot of those in the river. We also find quite a few brown trout. Some of the brown trout are pretty nice, as you see here. The Clinch River is located just a short drive away from Knoxville, Tennessee. It's also within 3 hours of Nashville and about 4 hours of Lexington, 4 hours of Louisville. You can be in Atlanta in 4 hours, so it's really close to a lot of the areas in the southeast here. To get there, you travel about 15 miles up the interstate from Knoxville to Anderson County. If you travel Interstate 75 a lot, you'll cross the river there near exit 122. And you're getting off at the exit, you're within about 10 minutes of all the public access areas. There's also plenty of lodging and places to eat close by the exit there. You can find stuff almost any budget, from the Holiday Inn to the Red Roof Inn. Some of the places are pretty nice. Some of them you'd probably just want to go with maybe your fishing buddies, not necessarily your wife. If your wife's your fishing buddy, you'll want to hit the Hilton probably there. There's also plenty of camping nearby and cabins available at the North Dam State Park. So what makes the river so special? The Clinch River is a great trout fishery for several reasons. One is it's got a very big lake that has a stable supply of clean, cold water. A lot of the river flows through fertile watersheds and stream beds. The TWRA has progressive regulations on the river, and there's also plenty of public water you can get to. Norris Dam is what provides us with the tailwater. It was completed in 1936 as part of the New Deal Act from Franklin Roosevelt right after the Great Depression. The dam's 255 feet high and it stretches about almost 2,000 feet across the Clinch River. Norris Lake is one of the largest tributaries on the Tennessee River. So you've got a very big, deep lake, and that provides a lot of cold water. The water discharge from the dam is very cold year-round. We see 40 degrees in the winter, and on the hottest and driest summers, we may get up to about 60 degrees. Of course, the dam has plenty of ways to discharge water. In this picture here, you'll notice that water's coming over the spillway gate, which happens when we see a lot of rain. But they can also release water through the sluice gates at the bottom of the dam, as well as the turbine. TVA has a great app that you can download for your phone, that you can see the release schedules of all the dams in the system. But if you download the app, you'd want to go to the Norris Dam to see what the flows are for the Clinch. So you have all this great cold water. Is that all it takes for the fishery? No, you still need some other stuff. You need a fertile river valley to feed the fish. Rolling hills of the Clinch and the mountains buffer the river from a lot of harmful runoff that could come from the big towns. Plus, the river flows through a lot of limestone. So when it comes through these slow limestone areas, it picks up a lot of nutrients that raises the pH. And what you get is a very healthy environment with a lot of bugs and a lot of life in it. That really helps feed the fish. You also have TWRA managing the river with progressive regulation. Now, TWRA, you can find their app also on the App Store and at the Google App Store. It's a good app to find to get your license or just to see the regulations of where you're going to be fishing at. The Clinch River has a protected slot limit between 14 and 20 inches. So any fish in that range has to be released. And a brown trout has to be over 20 inches before you can keep a brown trout. So with that said, there's a lot of fish in that 14 to 20 inch range that show up because it doesn't take them long to grow that size and become protected. So you have a stable cold water supply, a fertile river valley. It promotes a strong food base, progressive regulation. So with those conditions, you end up with a lot of holdover fish that become trophy fish. The tailwater begins right below Norris Dam, which is in Norris, Tennessee. It flows for about 14 miles before it ends at the Highway 61 boat ramp in Clinton, Tennessee. The river is divided into two sections pretty much. You got the upper river and the lower river. A lot of times in one day you may fish one of the sections, or you might fish parts of both, just depending on what the flow schedule is and what you're trying to accomplish. The upper river starts at the base of the dam. And the first access you can find is there's a parking access right below the dam, but the next access you've got for like launching a canoe or a kayak would be the Songbird canoe launch. Now, you can get a drift boat in here, but it's kind of a tough task. And I don't think TVA really likes people launching there, but you can do it. If you can get in the pool up there, you'll have about 1.5 miles of slow flowing pool water that's often filled with some of the biggest fish in the river. It's very peaceful up there, and it's fishable pretty much on any water level. The next access you're going to come across is going to be the Weir Dam access. Now, the Weir Dam on the Clinch was built in 1987, and it was put in place for a couple reasons. One thing, it definitely does, it adds dissolved oxygen to the tailwater, but also in times of low water, it helps stabilize the stream levels downstream of the Weir Dam. Whereas before the Weir Dam was put in, when TVA would turn the water off, a lot of the river downstream of the dam would really become dewatered. A lot of your stream beds would be dewatered. And the problem with that, the fish could find places to go, but the bugs that lived on the stream bed would pretty much dry up and die. So when they put this Weir Dam in, that helped keep water in the entire riverbed, even when they're not running water at the main dam. And this here's a nice big brown trout we caught just below the Weir Dam here last winter. And as you make your way on downstream from the Weir Dam, you start heading towards Miller's Island, which is the next big access, and you come across a lot of pools that have plenty of nice fish in them. But Miller's Island is probably one of the most notable access areas because you can launch a boat there, and you can also access the wade fish. Right here at Miller's Island, you can access probably about 1.5 miles of water from this access alone. And that's good for wading down all around Miller's Island, as well as maybe even putting your boat in and beginning your float downriver. A lot of this water is pretty shallow, so if you do launch a boat, you'll want to kind of take your time, and you may have to drag it here and there. But you can get to some good water. there's always pretty nice fish hanging out around Miller's Island because it's shallow and gravelly, and there's just a lot of good structure there. Sometimes the fish can get a little spooky there because that is the best wading access, and they do see more hooks in that area than probably any other stretches of the river. You also find a lot of roadside pull-offs on the upper section. A lot of these right here will have quick access down into the water, but may have private property around them. So it's better just park there and hop in the water, not necessarily scurry along the bank. Also, the Tennessee law is if the riverbed is public up to the high water mark. So if you're in the riverbed, you can walk along the bank as long as you don't go above the high water mark. Now, a lot of this area is very wadeable when the water's off. In fact, I can get in at Miller's Island, and you can wade downriver about a mile and then come out at one of those small pull-offs. But it's all good wading water and very fishable when the river's on low flow. When the river's high, there's not a lot of wading to be found anywhere on the river. So you want to limit your wading to when the water's low. The next access you're going to find is on downriver about another 1.5 miles past the interstate. That's the Peach Orchard boat ramp. Now, if you make your way Peach Orchard, a lot of this water is going to be pretty deep even when the water's off, so it's more of a boating destination down through this stretch. But it's full of really big fish. Not always easy to catch because the water is really deep and slow, but it's a good place to target big trout. The Peach Orchard boat ramp is the end of the upper river and the start of the lower river. The boat ramp is pretty much usable on any water level, but there's no wade fishing around this boat ramp. You can pretty much just launch your boat and move upriver. It's all too deep to fish or to try to wade fish right there in that immediate area. And now talking about the lower river, it's about 7.5 miles from the Peach Orchard boat ramp to the Highway 61 boat ramp. Along this stretch, you're going to find miles and miles of beautiful water. Some places where you can get out and wade. But for the most part, you really just kind of keep slow floating along with the river, and 7.5 miles, it'll take you about all day to do it. So starting at Peach Orchard, as you can see, you have very limited access from Peach Orchard down to Highway 61. In fact, it's all private land except right there at the boat ramp. With that limited access, it kind of makes this area special because these fish don't see the same amount of pressure that you'd see like up at Miller's Island. So it's not as hard to catch some of these fish because they're not as spooky. The last public spot you're going to find where you can wade fish is down in Clinton, right by the Second Baptist Church. They've been gracious enough to allow people to wade fish in their parking lot. And that's really a good thing because as you look right there beside the church, you've got about a mile or so of wadeable water. Of course, again, when the water's low. When the water's off and low, like you see here, you can get in there at the church and go all the way up to the bend and fish all of those nice little shoals. Most of it's ankle to knee deep. It's really good wading when the water's off right there. Like I said, you can access probably about a mile of water during low flows from the dam there in Clinton. All this water is very good water. You really, like I said, a lot of it's ankle to knee deep, but there's fish that'll hold in all of it. One of the characteristics about, yes.
I have a question as far as if there's dependable shuttle service per Josh.
Yeah, we've got a great shuttle service there on the clinic. There's actually 2 guys that run shuttle there, and both of them, I want to say both of them are right at $25 a shuttle. So you just call them the night before and let them know what you're doing, or the day of, and they'll work with you to get you shuttled down the river.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you fish this water, a lot of it like you can see in this picture, it's really just slow flowing glassy water, almost like a spring creek. So you gotta be stealthy, and you can see the fish, and of course they can see you too. But if you're stealthy enough, you can catch some really nice fish in this kind of water. Also, that last stretch down there at the church, it's very good for floating the boats too, because there's lots of ledges. Anytime you find big ledges, you'll find big fish that live up under them. And so here we start to talk about drift fishing the Clinch, which over the years, this has become one of my specialties. The river's kind of hard to navigate without any water flowing, but I've spent a lot of time learning how to get the boat down the river, and I've lost a lot of gel coat on the boat here and there, but overall, I've not sank a boat yet. But we like to fish it on low water coming down the river. It also works pretty good for high water. But our drift boats are very comfortable to fish from. The angler can cast from a seated position or a standing position. And from your elevated position, you can see into the water very well. The drift boats are very quiet and stable, so that allows us to drift right into the fish before they ever know we're there, which really helps a lot on that kind of glassy water you see there. If you can get your fly out in front of the boat, the fly will be the first thing the fish sees, and you won't really have to worry so much about spooking them. There's just a few more of the pretty fish pictures we see on the Clinch. Like I was saying, the boats are very easy to maneuver into tight spots, and you can set anchor and fish these spots from an elevated position. So it makes everything, every part of your presentation is easier. You know, you can cast a little further upriver because your line's not hanging in the water. Then it's easier to get your mend, and then just a nice long dead drift through these currents. So it's close to cheating, I guess, because it makes getting that dead drift pretty easy. But it's a fun way to fish. You know, our boats are very roomy. They allow you to carry pretty much all the gear you could need for a day of fishing. You know, coolers and gear bags and lunch. You know, you got to always have lunch. Just another nice brown trout there.
Hey, Rocky,
So
what do you charge? What do you charge for your guiding?
our full day trips are $400, and the half day trips are $325, and that's good for one or two people. So
Okay.
we usually suggest if you're going to come fishing to find your buddy or bring somebody with you, because it's the same price either way.
Okay. And you can fit two people obviously in your boat, right?
Yes. I have a guide that has a drift boat with 3 seats in it, but most of the drift boats that you see in this business are going to be 2-seaters. You know,
Right.
one room for 2 people.
Right. Okay.
But the boats work really well at almost all water levels. Even the skinniest riffles to the deepest currents. Like I said, I really pride myself on being able to bring the boat down the river on low water and to fish some of that without really chasing every fish in the river off. You can see here, this is a pretty skinny water bringing the boat through, and a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think the skinniest water would hold good fish, but the Clinch holds really nice fish in any water that you find a little movement in, even if it's just a few inches.
Okay.
Tennessee is a beautiful place. Go ahead, Sheila. We get a lot of rolling pastures and mountain bluffs and towering tree lines along the river. So the scenery along the float trips is always a nice bonus to have along the way. We fish year-round here in Tennessee. You know, it's not out of the ordinary to have a 50 or 60 degree day in the middle of January. But with that being said, our busiest windows are usually March through June, and then September through November. And of course, any time of year you can get out, as long as you can get some sunshine on it, it's not too bad out there. And these are some very nice fish that we caught last season. This was fall a couple years ago with this pretty brown trout. And this was I believe that was a November rainbow right there that we found. But anyway, the Clinch has a reputation of being kind of a tough technical river. With that said, it often pays to fish a leader that's 12 to 16 feet long. What I'll usually do is start off with a 12-foot 4X leader and just add 5 and 6X tippet to it. But our boats using a long leader will allow us to fish out in front of the boat and allow the fish to see the flies long before they see the boat. Here's another nice chunky rainbow. The Clinch does require lots of techniques to be successful for fly fishing. Indicator nymph fish is popular year-round. The Clinch has midges that hatch every day of the year, so if nothing else, you can fish midges pretty much any time and be successful. Dry fly and soft tackles usually work better in the spring and summer when we have our sulfur hatches, some of our better mayfly hatches there. And then streamer fishing can be good anytime you can get some decent flow, like 1 turbine or more, makes streamer fishing really good. The Clinch is a very rich environment, and it's full of forage for the hungry fish. Like I said, we got aquatic invertebrates that are always available in the river. Crustaceans, bait fish, and terrestrials all play a big part in the Clinch River. It's pretty important to have a good selection of flies when you go to fish the Clinch River. But with that said, a lot of the bugs that we find in the Clinch River are going to be the same popular bugs you'd fish if you were traveling to like Arkansas or somewhere out west to fish. But you want to just stay on top of what's happening here. Knowing what's hatching week in and week out can give you a little head start on catching fish.
Rocky, I have another question for you.
Yeah.
The question is, what size weight rod do you recommend?
What
Do
size
you usually
fly?
use? No, rod. Do you use a 5 weight? What?
On rods for the Clinch, a 5 weight or a 6 weight is going to work really well for most applications. I usually steer people more towards a 6 weight because with a 6 weight you can handle a nip setup, a heavy nip setup with wind in your face. You can do dry flies and you can even do light streamers. So a 6 weight is probably one of the more well-rounded rods. But I know a lot of people that will fish with a 5 weight when they're fishing dry flies. And then there's a lot of people when we got plenty of water that might fish with an 8 weight or a 9 weight, pulling big streamers with something kind of heavy.
So 9 foot 5 weight or 6 weight?
Yeah, 9 foot 5 weight, 9 foot 6 weight. Any more in the boat, we're seeing a lot more rods that are 10-foot rods. And those work really nice in the boat because with a 10-foot rod, you've got a little more reach, and that really helps with not only your casting, but the mending, mending that line upstream.
Right.
You can really reach out and raise that line off the water, but you can get it done with a 9-foot rod. Sure, I mean, people have been doing it for a long time, so.
Okay.
It's really, I guess personal preference there. You can be successful with a lot of different rods, whatever you like to deliver them on.
Okay, I got another question. What is your position on monofilament versus fluorocarbon?
You got to have both.
All right.
The monofilament or nylon monofilament is what you're going to want to use when you're fishing dry flies or flies that you want to present kind of close to the top, because it naturally has the tendency to float. So when you're wanting to fish a dry fly, something on top, go with the monofilament. The fluorocarbon naturally wants to sink, and also supposedly fluorocarbon disappears, and it's not as dense as the water, such and such, and so it's supposed to disappear, they say. So usually you want to fish fluorocarbon when you're fishing nymph flies or streamer flies or anything, on below the surface. So I think you got to have some of both.
Okay. So in case everybody's wanting to know, no, that was not Josh that asked that question. That was Fred that asked that question. That's an ongoing joke for the club. It was not Josh that asked that question.
Well, it's a good question. I mean, and it makes a difference sometimes. If I was going somewhere and I only had one or the other, I'd use what I had. If I had the choice, I'd use monofilament for the dry flies and then fluorocarbon for wet flies.
Okay, perfect.
But getting back here, one of our first big food items we have are caddis flies. Caddis flies are a major food source on every trout river to some degree or another. They may just play a small part in some places, but in other rivers they're really, really important. On the Clinch, we see caddis every year between a size 12 up to a size 20. A lot of times, some of your best bets for the caddis is going to be fishing little caddis pupa patterns, caddis larvae. But once they get to hatching, that's when everybody pulls out, their dry flies, their big elk hair caddis and stuff like that. And the caddis can be a fun hatch to fish because the dry flies are very erratic on the water. They'll buzz around the water and they're bouncing up and down in the water. So you can kindly fish a dry caddis without having to worry about, being very neat with it. You can really splash it down hard or hit it on the water and then skate it across the water, and it can make for some exciting strike. And right here, this is a big rainbow trout. We got to eat a caddis pupa for us a couple years ago, early in the morning. Neat story about that fish. About 2 weeks later, I had another angler catch the same fish, and it had grown an inch in 2 weeks. It was an inch bigger two weeks later when we caught it. The second big food item you're going to find on the Clinch is the mayflies. Mayflies are a favorite of all fishermen, all dry fly fishermen anyway. And I think it's just because of their iconic profile there. They've got the wings that stand up on their back. I've always kind of likened it to hands, praying hands. But they're easy to identify on the water because they look like little sailboats with their wings standing up. On the Clinch River, our big mayfly hatches are the blue wing olives. We'll see those a lot in the winter. Most of the time, the blue wing olives are going to be, size 18 to maybe down to a 22, kind of small, but the fish really enjoy them. Another good item we have is the big Cahills, and those will hatch off in February and early March. They're a fun hatch to fish because they're a little bigger. They're a size 14, and they're a little bit easier to see. Now, our most prominent hatch is probably the sulfurs, or little orange mayflies. The sulfurs come off pretty much April, May, and into June. This year, they came off really, really heavy in April, which was when everybody was really locked down here in Tennessee, and there wasn't much going on. So a few days I was out in April, the fish and the swallows just had a field day eating mayflies all day, and not many people around to harass them. But the mayfly hatch is a very good hatch because there's so many of these in the river. And a lot of times, year-round, a little sulfur nymph, you can fish the standard pheasant tail and catch fish there year-round just because there's so many of these sulfur nymphs in the river. And like I said, it's a pattern that we fish that pheasant tail year-round. Between a size 14 and a size 18, I'd say there's been times when I fish it down to a 20, but those other sizes seem to work really well most of the season. We also have a smattering of stoneflies on the river. We don't have a lot of really big stoneflies like you may see in some tailwaters, maybe like over on the Holston, which is close to the clinch here. But the stoneflies we do get are usually black stoneflies, and we like those a lot. Sometimes we can fish big stimulators for some of the golden stoneflies, but like I said, those really don't hatch out that much on the clinch. What we do get on the clinch are the little black stoneflies, like the one there on the bottom. Those come off pretty heavy in the wintertime and are a good dry fly opportunity during the winter when usually you don't have a lot of dry fly going on. And here's a nice little stonefly eater we pulled out of the rock ledge there. And as I was mentioning earlier, the midges are prominent in the river year-round. Again, these are bugs that pretty much any trout river you find in the country are going to have midges present. Every day we'll see thousands of midges hatch out, and it doesn't matter if it's sunny, if it's rainy, or whatnot, that the midges will be out there eating. So when nothing's going on as far as big bugs, you can be assured that the fish are eating the little midges because they're always there. You can fish little dry fly midges. These are usually going to be somewhere between size 20 and a 24. The most popular midge patterns we fish are usually subsurface, like the bloodworm or the jujube midge. Now these right here usually range in size from a 16 to a 20. And you can get a little smaller if you want to. But year in, year out, you can catch fish on this kind of stuff almost every day, under the right water conditions. And here's a rainy day rainbow trout. A pretty sunny day rainbow trout. And both of those fish ate little midges. And, a lot of times anglers ask me why the fish would eat such small bugs. And all I can tell them is it's a lot like eating a bowl of popcorn. If you pull up one piece of popcorn and eat it, it's not going to do a whole lot for you. But if you eat that whole bucket of popcorn, you're probably going to feel full. And it's kind of the same with the little midges. One of them is not going to fill them up, but a couple thousand little midges makes a pretty good meal. Also popular on the clinch are sow bugs and scuds. Now, these are little freshwater crustaceans. Oftentimes the little sow bugs resemble roly-polies, whereas your scuds look a lot more like freshwater shrimp. Now, these are popular items anywhere you find them. Like the Arkansas rivers, out the White River, the Little Red, and the North Fork, all of them are very, very prominent with sow bugs and scuds. These little patterns also work really well on the clinch because we see a lot of these type crustaceans in the water. Usually these patterns are pretty simple. You want to tie them with some weight to them so they sink down pretty good. But a lot of people tend to overlook these bugs because they're not quite as spoken of as you would your little mayfly nymphs and your beadhead pheasant tails and your prince nymphs. But you should never overlook having some in your box because there's some days when they'll totally save the day. And all the fish will take advantage of them as well.
Rocky, I have another question real quick.
Sure.
I have Paul Duzings wanting to know if you provide the flies when you go out on a...
We do. On our trips, we provide all the gear and all the flies and tippet, rods and reels. Clients are welcome to bring their own rods. I've seen over the years that most people do cast better with their own equipment because it's stuff they're used to fishing, but we're set up to where basically all you have to do is show up, and we cover everything else. Also lunch and drinks and everything like that. We have it all.
Okay.
But like I said, one of my favorite things to fish is the stuff you find in the summer, the terrestrials. These are bugs that, they're not aquatic, but oftentimes they end up in the water. And when these kind of bugs end up in the water, they become very easy meals for the trout. Little ant patterns work extremely well. Grasshopper patterns work well. And your beetle patterns work really well. The things that are really good about these is they're really easy to see usually. A big old grasshopper, it's not hard to see. You can just slide him down on the bank, make him land real hard with a big splash. And that brings the fish's attention to it. And they come looking for it. And it's got those little rubber legs on it, and they just hammer it. And it can be some of the most exciting fishing that you'll find just because some of the strikes are so explosive. Anytime in the summer I can get away fishing hoppers, that's what I like to do the most. And that's big brown trout tend to like big hoppers and stuff. A lot of times when you find this low, spooky water on the river, the brown trout, they're not too worried about eating little midges and stuff, but you splash that big old grasshopper over next to the tree, you never know what's going to come out from under the tree. And sometimes it's a nice, pretty brown trout like this one or that one. This trout here was on a very foggy morning, and a lot of times the little beetles the foggy, wet moisture on the trees, they tend to fall off early in the morning. So a lot of times we'll get on the banks and just splash those beetles down in the summer, and sometimes we get rewarded with a pretty nice fish. Also very popular in the Clinch River is going to be the bait fish. There's several shad and sculpin that come up the river, and even younger rainbow trout oftentimes become victim to some of those big brown trout. But I really like fishing these little synthetic fiber minnows. It's a little puglisi pattern. They're really easy to tie, and they're really effective when you've got good water. A lot of Kelly Gallup's patterns work really well for the sculpin and other bait fish. They're articulated, and they got really good action to them. And over the past few years, I've been tying a lot more of the Blaine Choppet Game Changers because, again, they're articulated all the way through, so they got a really good swimming action to them. And if you've got a lot of water going through the clinch, too much to wade, it's never a bad idea to pull out a big streamer and go looking for trophies. A lot of times the streamer fishermen are going to be the ones that probably don't catch as many fish, but they get more of these grip and grin style fish because the big fish definitely eat more small fish than anything else. Oftentimes you can tell the big fish have really big swollen bellies because that's the kind of meals they're putting away. The big old wide-tailed brown trout, beautiful rainbow trout. And that was a big streamer fish I had eat for me a couple years ago on a foggy day. Again, just it's basically hunting the treasure. And some days you go out and pull streamers all day and you don't necessarily find the treasure, but some days you do. With that right there, that's pretty much the end of my presentation here on the Clinch River. Right now, I'd be happy to take any other questions that may come up. If you'd like to give me a call, you can reach me at 865-388-9802. And we are on the web at rockytopanglers.com.
I have a question from Jack Randall. What brand of monofilament do you like for dry flies?
I tell you, I use a lot of Orvis monofilament because I found that the Orvis brand, it tends to be very consistent from spool to spool. And everybody may be different on that, but the Orvis, it seems like when you get a spool of 6X. It's very consistent, very consistent breaking strength. The same with their fluorocarbon as well. It just usually seems like it's been more kind to me as far as knot strength and just being consistent.
Okay. I've got some more. Matt Breeze says thanks. Walter Weller said great quality pics. You have some beautiful pictures. I have to agree with that. They're really nice pictures.
Well, thank you. The river's full of beautiful fish, and you know, if you've got beautiful fish, that really helps make for nice pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm not too much to look at, but if I'm holding up a big old brown trout, that sure makes a good picture.
All right. Well, go ahead, Josh.
I want to know when we book a trip, can we just schedule those large browns to bite only? Just the large browns?
I tell you what, I wish it worked like that. I've got a client he's been fishing with me 20 years, and last weekend he brought his grandson, 14 years old, brought him for his first fishing trip. And the first day, the kid, you know, he did pretty well, you know, because he'd never fly fished. But he probably caught 10 fish that first day, and the next day, the second day out, we'd probably been fishing 20 minutes, and he landed a 22-inch brown. So, you know, it was just boom, lightning strikes, and he was there to catch him.
All right,
Awesome.
I have another question. This one is from Bill Runner. Let me get back to it again. Well, shoot, hold on. I lost it just that quick. Bill's wanting to know how long is the typical flow?
The typical float trip,
Yeah.
you know, our half-day trips are usually about 4 to 5 hours, and a full-day trip is usually going to be about 8 hours, and sometimes they go a little longer, just depending on, you know, what's happening on the river and how well we're getting downriver.
Okay. Rich Primick, how often do they stock, and is there any reproduction?
TWA stocks the river monthly from March through November, and they may stock it twice a month, but there's also a decent amount of natural reproduction. You know, you can usually tell a lot of the fish that you see in my pictures there are fish that I'm pretty sure were born in the river because they usually have the more vibrant colors to them. The state of Tennessee, usually when they stock trout, they like to stock an 8-inch trout. And usually I think those 8-inch trout are the ones that pretty much feed the big trout. But yeah, we do get stocked, but we also have natural reproduction.
I've got a question. In what city is lodging?
The river right there is located right at Clinton, Tennessee. So if you're coming down the Interstate 75, you'll cross into Tennessee, and in about 30 minutes later, you're going to hit the exit 122, which is the Clinton Norris exit. And right there at the exit, there's about 8 different motels, and there's campgrounds, and there's cabins. But it's all located within just a few minutes of exit 122 there in Clinton.
Okay. Jack says, great presentation. Thank you. I'm with Josh on the big browns.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful you guys had me for this. This is the first time I've ever done a meeting like this, and I'm a little worried that it wouldn't go off too well, but I'm very thankful to be the guest here tonight.
And then Brent was great presentation. Looks like a great destination. Let me see. I have a couple other ones. They're just not falling into the feed right now. Okay, here we go.
Rich Premick wants to know, is there a delayed harvest season or delayed harvest section?
There is not. We have been tough at it with TWRA over the years to have some special sections that so far all they've given us is the protected slot limit that goes from, it's pretty much from the dam down to that bridge you see in the picture there. It's 14 miles of protected, fish. Once they hit 14 inches, they're protected. You can't keep any fish between 14 and 20 inches. But there's not a delayed harvest season or anything like that.
Okay, the next one I have is from Bill Renner. How is your availability for the summer and fall?
Right now, we still have pretty good availability through summer, and fall is still wide open. We lost a lot of April and May due to the COVID-19 and even the bad weather. We had a lot of rain in May, which is out of the normal, so we lost a lot of that. A lot of those people are starting to rebook now for the summer, but so far we still have good availability through July and August. And like I said, after that, the next big window is typically late September through November. And I'd say at this point we still have about 80% of those dates open.
Oh, good. All right. I don't have. Send some cards to Mike. Oh. Yeah, can you send us some of your business cards so that we can maybe distribute them?
We got his information. I believe we got it,
Oh,
and we
we
got
do.
the information on the website too for his
Okay.
email.
You can go on the website there, and I'm real good about answering emails. If you got questions, you can hit me with emails, and I'll be happy to answer those. It might take me a day or so to get to them when we're busy, but I will get
Okay.
to them.
That sounds good. Matt Breeze wants to know about other species. Other than
Probably the most popular other species you'll find in the Clinch would be stripers. The Clinch River flows out of Norris 14 miles, and then right here at the bridge on the screen is where it enters into Melton Hill Lake. And Melton Hill Lake is a very popular striper fishery. And those stripers in the summer will come up into the tailwater and eat trout. So that's probably the more popular species that you'd find in the river. Sometimes, and I wouldn't say fly fishermen get these very often, but there's a lot of people that can catch walleye in the upper end of the tailwater. Usually I think they're fishing deep jigs and bait on the bottom, but there are some walleye. There's a lot of carp in the Clinch. And, the carp have gotten a little popular as a pretty fun sport fish just because they fight like tanks when you hook into them. But I would say most people coming to the Clinch are either targeting the trout or the striper.
Okay. Do you have my husband's handicap? Do you have availability as far as like to be able to take somebody handicap on your boat?
Sure. We've taken plenty of people that many different types of things, ailments that we can get them in the boat. It's no problem.
Okay.
Like I said,
He's
our
got
boats
a
you can fish.
prosthetic, so he's got a prosthetic leg, so
Absolutely. Our boats, they have nice seats in them, and you can fish from a sitting or standing position, whatever's comfortable.
okay. Yeah, because he can stand for a short amount of time. He just can't,
Yeah, but the
Yeah,
boat would be
I
perfect.
can't help you with that. Okay, that's good. He's wanting to know about mental capacity because he's a mental case. So
Well, we kind of have to be able to work with all of them. I think to be a guide, you've got to be a little mental anyway. So
well, that's true.
that makes it easy to work around.
That's true. I don't disagree with that. All right, there's another message through. Let's see what it says. The Claxcraft are very comfortable. Oh, that's from Jack. Okay. So Josh
Sure.
L. So does Josh L. Okay, I don't know what broccoli boy. I don't know what that so Josh L is. Josh L, do you know what that means?
I don't know if he's trying to say I'm comfortable as a crack-a-claft. I don't know really exactly, but oh well, it doesn't matter. Hey,
Joe,
do we
you're
wanna-
crazy.
We want to wrap up the Q&A here, and is there any other Facebook questions you guys got that we want to ask Rocky before we go to the drawings and end this thing?
Give them a minute or two
Questions
to
people have that you
respond.
don't get to, feel free to shoot me an email and I'll be happy to take care of them.
We'll do it, Rocky.
Sounds
Well,
like
I know I'll say it was an excellent presentation. Those pictures were out of this world. Just seeing those large brown trout and those real specific reds and blacks and the different colors got me all excited about the clinch. And I've never fished it yet, so I think I'll be contacting you here pretty soon to get that all squared away.
Yeah,
Give us a call, Josh.
beautiful.
We'd be happy to have you out on the river. And again, I'd like to thank everybody for inviting me to the meeting tonight. It was very fun.
Well, thanks. We appreciate it.
All right.
I don't see any other questions for Rocky. So, oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I lied. Oh, great presentation. Nice pictures. Thanks. That was from Ron Kilmer. Aw.
Thank you, Ron.
All right. Well, Rocky, if you need to bounce, you can. You can stay on while we do the prize drawings, but we'll end the meeting right after this. So, guys, we got so thanks a lot, Rocky. Really appreciate it. 3 prizes for
Thanks,
tonight
Rocky.
that we're going to give away for the people that registered for the event on the webpage. I've got everybody's name listed here in this list randomizer that did register. I believe there's 39 of you, and that is the order that you registered in. So here in a second, I'm going to click randomize, and whoever's number 1 there in the Randy Areawood spot will win this nice reel. It's a 7 or 8 weight. Comes with a little bag. Whoever's number 2 up there is going to win this weight forward 6 weight floating fly line. And whoever is the 3rd person will win the NKFF fly box that will have a baker's dozen flies in it when I get them in there. So without further ado, here we go to see who won. Boom. All right. Oh, this is rigged. Winner of the reel,
Hey!
our founder, Mike Arnold.
Yay,
Winner
Mike!
of the fly line, our president, Sheila Arnold. And winner of
Sheila Arnold.
fly box, or my bad, Sheila Meyer, my bad, Matthew Breeze. So I'll get these guys squared away. I work with to get your address from our membership database, and I'll get these prizes mailed out. Last month's prizes I haven't mailed out yet, so just if you won those, just wanted to let you know. All right, anything else, Sheila?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you so much, Rocky. We appreciate it. Is there another message?
Great meeting, y'all.
All right, thanks, guys.
Matt was happy. He says, hell yes.
Have a good time. Hope everybody's doing all right.
Bye, Rocky. Thanks, Josh.